Hi class, Dr. Jones here. Wanted to give a final video as we start into our last section together in this first half of the course. Right now you are finishing up your papers for week 6. Let me speak to that for just a minute. You have two papers this week. One is a service for baptism, either putting together a service order, a litany, some way that you would train people for baptism or go through the actual service of baptism. And so the directions are there. That's a toolkit assignment. So make that useful to your particular setting. If your setting's different than kind of a traditional church setting, just let me know that in the short paragraph at the beginning, kind of giving a description of your setting. So if you're doing this for a youth group and the service would maybe be combined with the adults, or if it's a separate service at a youth camp or at a youth event, then let me know that, because that may indicate reasons why you may choose to do or not do some things in that service. So give me a little context as you write that paper if you haven't done that already. And then you have your big paper on baptism this week. That should combine resources from week's 4 paper on the history of baptism and week's 5 paper on the biblical theology of baptism. If you've handed those 2 papers in, I've gotten all the papers that I've received back to you. If you've not handed that in yet, then you're not going to get that back before Thursday this week. So I do not want you to just cut and paste from those 2 papers into the new paper. What I want you to do is pull information from those papers, but then develop that into more of a comprehensive theology of baptism. And the instructions tell us, give you some direction on what to address, who's an eligible candidate for baptism, what process should be gone through for baptism, what does baptism mean, who can do baptism. So you're kind of looking at all those kind of issues that surround baptism. We've been talking about them throughout our discussion board post as well as in your earlier 2 papers. But again, let me reiterate, I do not want to see just your earlier 2 papers chopped up and spliced together in this new paper. You can pull from them, and that's good. If you're citing directly from them, I would cite yourself. That's the appropriate way to do that, is to actually put a citation in and say that this comes from your paper that you handed in earlier. But the bulk of your information should be new information that you're kind of compiling together, synthesizing together for this new paper this week. If you have questions, shoot me an email, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. I have a couple all-day meetings this week for my district board of ministerial development, and so I will be a little bit more limited in my ability to get back to you, especially on Thursday. I want to talk also, the seminary has switched the way that we do citations. Some of you have caught on to this, others of you are still working with it. I've been very lenient and not taking a lot of points off for that. So, but I do want us to begin moving that way. I don't know how Dr. Fosua is going to approach that in the second half of the course. But the seminary has moved to what we would call Chicago or Turabian style. So we're no longer using parentheses at the end of the sentence with the author's last name and the year of publication. Instead, we have a footnote, and then the footnote should appear at the bottom of the page. If you're using Word, that has an automatic feature that you can use for footnotes. You don't have to do that manually. And you type in the bibliographic information, the full bibliographic information, and the first time that you'd be citing a source. Any sequential times that you would utilize the same source, you only need to give a shorter citation, normally including the author's last name, an abbreviated title, and then the page number on which that source or that quote or bit of information would have been drawn from. You can find information on YouTube if you just punch in Chicago or Turabian style citations. I believe there's something on the course webpage. I did not look up the link for that. But if you have questions about that specifically, again, you can shoot me an email. Turabian's Manual of Style covers all of that. If you have that book, that's a good book to have for graduate work, helping you with various sources and citations and things like that. But you do need to start moving towards that. I'd like to see that in this baptism paper. and you'll need to be doing that in all of your work because that's where the seminary has moved towards. Some of you, actually, there's quite a few of you who have not turned in papers from weeks 4 and 5, and I understand these are the really busy weeks, and so I get that. I will accept papers up through the end of break week. Okay, I'll talk just a minute about the calendar. But if you are behind on papers, I will accept papers up through the end of break week. I want you to have everything from the first 8 weeks of the course done by the end of break week. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle in the second half of the course. I want you to be able to kind of start fresh and to dive into the second half of the course with everything, knowing that everything from the first half is done. Discussion board posts, I do not allow them to be made up because that is not fair to everybody else in the class who has participated in the discussion. They're really meant to design to stimulate conversation, and you're doing a great job of interacting with one another, and I really appreciate that. But because of that, they are time sensitive. They also serve as our attendance record, and so if you've got an email saying that you were not active in attending the class and you turned a paper in but you didn't do the discussion board, that's why. The discussion boards serve as the attendance for the week, and so you do want to make sure that you stay engaged in those, even if minimally, so that you get credit for being active in the course that week. For week 6, handing in at least one assignment will demonstrate that you've been active in the course during week 6. So even if you can't get both papers in, make sure you get at least one in, and that will count towards your attendance for week 6. So we're right now we're in week 6. That will end on Thursday night, and we launch into week 7. So week 7 begins on February 28th and goes through March 5th. Week 8 begins March 6th and goes through March 12th. And then we are on break. For Wesley Seminary, our break is after week 8. And so March 13th through the 19th is break week. So that's the week that if you have back papers, you want to get those back papers done and turned into me. So March 19th is the last day to submit back papers. If you are submitting back paperwork, or papers, be sure to email me and to notify me that you have those things coming, so I'll be looking for them. And if you have trouble getting them in through the web page, you can email them to me, but you should be able to go back and to turn back papers in through the web page. So let me talk a little bit about weeks 7 and 8. We begin a new module for those last 2 weeks of this first half of the course. In week 7, we're going to be looking at prayer and embodiment in our worship. And so you're going to be developing a prayer guide that speaks to helping somebody who would be leading prayer in a service to be able to do that. And so a guide to prayer, you're going to hopefully be able to use this in your particular ministry. Again, make this contextual to your particular ministry. And so maybe include a short paragraph at the front of that describing your ministry setting if it's unique from what we might think of as a standard worship service or church leadership position. So that's week 7. Week 8, we look at music. Look at the week 8 assignments a little bit early because there's a survey that you have to put together and give to people, and you are going to want to do that before you get into week 8. So I would recommend looking during week 7 at week 8's assignments, maybe getting that survey put together so that you can get that out to people ahead of time, and that would give you a little bit of extra time to do the assessment on that and to have that turned in, because you're doing a survey about your worship service, and so they need to have it before the Sunday before Sunday, I guess, March 8th. So if you could get that to them during the first week of March, that way they would have it and be able to analyze what's going on Sunday, March 8th. Okay? And that gives you a couple days then to get that turned in by Thursday, the 12th. If you don't get that done in time and you're going to be late on that, just let me know. Again, I would take that paper up through the 19th if you are unable to get that service evaluation done on the 8th. Perhaps you might have a snow day or something crazy like that would happen. We're also looking at music that week, evaluating songs and the type of music. And so you're going to need to be thinking about the music that was in your service the previous week for week 8 as well. So that's where we're heading. We're going to, kind of two very important parts of services and worship, prayer and music, and how we engage in those two things as we wrap up this first half of the course. It's been great working with you. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that you've enjoyed and have learned some cool things during this first 6 weeks. And as we step into these last two, weeks 7 and 8, I hope that you are looking forward to them as well. Again, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Happy to answer your questions as best I can. All right. Hope you're doing well, and praying for you all as you engage in these papers this week. I know it's a lot, but praying that God would give you strength, that He'd give you wisdom, that He would give you peace, and that you would not worry about this, but that through these exercises, they would be stimulating to your faith and to your leadership in your respective churches. So God bless. Thanks.